When we talk about sacred ancient texts, especially something like the Bible, we're immediately pulled in at least three very different directions.
Yeah,
You've got the narrative of faith and tradition, but then you have the hard facts of history, and then the physical evidence that archaeology digs up.
they don't always line up.
Not at all. And that's the core conflict. How do we hold deep reverence for a text while also subjecting it to really rigorous modern scrutiny?
That tension is exactly what we're here to explore in this deep dive. The sources you brought us are fascinating because they don't even try to resolve it with a simple answer. Instead, they just illuminate the sheer complexity of it all.
We're going to be moving across a whole spectrum, from the scientific application of archaeology to biblical events, to the historical charting of how these beliefs actually emerged over time, and then all the way to the really esoteric, mystical stuff like Kabbalah.
Our sources give us this perfect mix. We have hard data on where the spade challenges these famous narratives, historical analysis that charts the evolution from a local, even polytheistic Yahwism to global Judaism, and then the wild world of mystics who are looking for the secret life of God hidden in every single letter of the Torah.
The goal, as always, is to get that quick, thorough knowledge. We want to understand this multifaceted relationship between scripture, the spade, and the spirit.
We're really aiming for that aha moment, where you realize the text is functioning on all these levels at the same time, often holding conflicting truths depending on how you look at it.
That's it. Okay, let's unpack this. I think we have to start with the most concrete challenge, which is separating what one of our sources calls the historical wheat from the chaff. Using the lens of archaeology, what does the dirt actually tell us about the literal truth of these stories?
Well, archaeology is a really powerful lens, but what it often reveals are chronological and geographical discrepancies that challenge the historical accuracy of some of the most famous biblical tales. This forces us to redefine what history even meant in an ancient context. For them, history was less about a perfect timeline and more about theology. What happened and what does it mean about our relationship with God?
Right. Give us a specific example that really drives that tension home.
Okay, so the classic one our sources point to is the story of Capernaum. In the Gospel of Mark, Jesus goes to Capernaum and teaches in the local synagogue. It's presented as just a simple descriptive detail, a historical setting.
Right. And if you go to Israel today, you can see the white limestone structure that's often identified as that very synagogue.
Exactly. But here's the thing. When archaeologists excavated the foundation of that limestone synagogue, they found that it was built centuries after the time of Jesus. It dates mostly to the 4th or 5th century CE. So while it might be on top of an earlier foundation, no other clear synagogue from the 1st century has been definitively discovered there.
So that's a huge chronological discrepancy.
It is. The story is true in the sense that Jesus was believed to have taught there, but the architectural setting, the one described or implied, is anachronistic.
So the implication isn't that Jesus didn't exist or teach, but that the storytellers were placing the event in a setting that was familiar to their audience, maybe centuries later. It's like writing a story about Abraham Lincoln giving a speech on a modern highway.
Precisely. This is common throughout the text. We see the same issue with stories of military conquest. Think about the famous Battle of Jericho, where the walls came tumbling down after the horn sounded. One of the most iconic moments.
Really? No walls?
There were walls in earlier periods, but by the time the conquest narrative suggests the battle took place, the late Bronze Age, the city was at best a small, unfortified settlement, if it was even inhabited at all.
Wow, so we're left with a text that has real historical events like the Babylonian exile or the destruction of the temple, but these are mixed in with stories that are theologically crucial, yet historically questionable in our modern sense.
That's the key takeaway here. It requires accepting a mix of historical truth and mythical, maybe theological content. The point of these stories wasn't to provide a documentary for future scholars. It was to define a people's identity and their relationship with the divine.
That distinction between theological truth and historical fact is so critical. So, okay, let's zoom out from specific sites and look at the macro timeline. If these narratives developed over centuries, when did the beliefs in the Bible actually coalesce into what we recognize today as Judaism?
This is where we hit a pretty significant source problem. We're trying to reconstruct the beliefs of the average Judean during the early Hellenistic period, that key century after Alexander the Great, but before the Hasmonean Revolt.
And that period is really opaque.
Exactly, because the literary sources we have, Ben Sira, Tobit, Enochic literature, later Josephus, they're all produced by the literati, the educated scribes and intellectuals.
Ah, so they tell us what the elite were thinking.
They tell us what the elite were thinking. Copying and editing, they don't necessarily reflect the daily cult and customs of a farmer or a merchant.
So just like with archaeology, we have to rely heavily on the material remains again.
Absolutely. Archaeology, inscriptions, coins, papyri are considered a much better source for understanding common culture. And what this material evidence suggests is significant continuity from the Persian period. Judean names still had Yahwistic elements, so the worship of Yahweh definitely carried on.
But the surprise here, and this really challenges our assumptions, is that this Yahwistic worship wasn't necessarily strictly monotheistic yet, was it?
Not for everyone. It seems the data hints that Yahwistic worship was not completely exclusivist in that early Hellenistic period. We have evidence from the earlier Persian period, like at Elephantine in Egypt, showing Judeans recognizing and even revering multiple gods alongside Yahweh. That suggests this non-exclusive form of worship continued for a while. The strict boundary of no other gods before me hadn't fully taken hold across the entire populace yet.
I think a lot of people just assume that Alexander's conquest was this massive, culture-shattering event that instantly changed everything.
Yeah, and the sources are pretty clear that Alexander's arrival was not the major watershed moment for common culture or cult.
It was more a continuation.
For the most part, yes. The early Hellenistic period was largely a continuation of the Persian period in terms of language, administration, and daily life. The texts, the core of the biblical corpus, were likely being written and edited by those small groups of scribes, the literati, during this time. But those texts hadn't yet fundamentally shaped the cult of the broader society. It was all still very fluid.
So if the conquest wasn't the big break, where's the true aha moment? When did this older, more flexible Yahwism really turn into the rigorous, scripturally focused religion we call Judaism?
That watershed moment was the Hasmonean period, the revolution in the mid-2nd century BCE. That political and religious upheaval led to the true emergence of a new identity. The Hasmoneans enforced the scriptural rules. They enforced the exclusive worship of Yahweh.
And that's what started the real process of solidifying things.
That's when scholarship says Judaism, as we understand it, truly begins to emerge.
That provides a fantastic historical framework. So we've established the sacred narrative is historically complex, and the religion itself evolves slowly, really achieving its definitive form through a political revolution.
This leads perfectly to our third and maybe most mind-bending perspective. What happens when mystics just completely discard the need for historical accuracy and instead look for a hidden truth within the text itself?
And this is where we just plunge into Kabbalah, the esoteric, mystical teachings of Judaism. And what's so fascinating is that Kabbalists don't see the Torah as a historical document that needs to be proven or disproven.
Oh, they see it as a living, symbolic organism. Their goal is apprehension of God, a way of knowing that's fundamentally beyond the intellect.
So the Torah is less a history book of events on Earth and more a manual describing cosmic law and the inner architecture of the divine itself.
Precisely. The Kabbalistic view is that the Torah is the blueprint for creation, the secret life of God. Its entire order, every sentence, word, and even every single letter is a concentration of divine energy unfolding according to a hidden law. This just makes historical arguments secondary to the cosmic truth encoded inside the letters.
And to unlock that secret truth, the 13th century Kabbalists developed a systematic, tiered approach to reading the text. This is what we call PaRDeS.
PaRDeS, yeah. It's a powerful mnemonic, an acronym for the 4 ascending levels of interpretation. We start with Peshat, which is the simple, literal meaning, the surface level.
Then Remez, the allegorical or philosophical meaning.
Next is Darash, the homiletical or Talmudic interpretation. And finally, the highest level is Sod, the mystical or secret meaning, the deepest mystery of faith.
So if the literal meaning is just Peshat, the first step, do the Kabbalists just ignore the historical stories we talked about, like Capernaum or Jericho?
They don't ignore them, they just see Peshat as the foundation, but it's the most superficial aspect. You have to climb the ladder. The goal is always Sod. For them, the story of Noah's Ark isn't just about a boat and some animals, it's a symbolic description of cosmological forces interacting. The narrative is just the vessel for the secret truth.
And this shift in interpretation also completely transforms the view of God. We move from the jealous, tribal God demanding loyalty to this limitless, cosmological entity. That ultimate entity is Ein Sof, the boundless, the infinite. But the infinite can't interact directly with a finite world. So to make room for existence, to allow space for world, the infinite God performed a voluntary act of self-contraction. It's called Tzimtzum.
That is a phenomenal concept. Creation starts with a divine withdrawal.
Exactly. And from that point of contraction, creation proceeds through a cascade of light and energy called emanation, and it's channeled through the 10 Sephirot. These are the 10 divine powers or attributes, like wisdom, understanding, loving kindness. They form the essential bridge between the unapproachable Ein Sof